Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make this cluster stitch crochet bow. It's so cute and it kind of resembles something that I saw on the Dance and Matter website that I was trying to emulate, and I thought the stitch was super cute, so I went down a bit of a Reddit hole to figure out what it's called. It's called the cluster stitch. It's very satisfying, it's very cute, and I'm going to show you every step of the way. This pattern was originally published in the Q2 2024 issue of Material Girls, which is a free fiber art magazine that you can always download at materialgirls.com. There are a bunch of other knitting crochet patterns and a sewing pattern in this issue, some interviews and games, lots of fiber art fun, so check it out. To make this, you'll need some mohair yarn. This is size 0 or lace weight yarn, a 3.5mm crochet hook, and some scissors, as well as a hairpin to eventually attach this to your hair. Throughout the pattern, we're going to be holding our yarn double, which just means pulling off of 2 yarn balls and doing 2 strands at the same time to make sure that it's nice and thick and fluffy. Start out with a simple slip knot. We're going to attach that to our hook and chain 176 stitches. So I filmed a whole tutorial of this using the mohair yarn and then looked back at the footage and realized that you cannot see what stitches I'm doing at all because the yarn is so thin. So I'm going to use some thicker yarn to show you how to do the cluster stitch and go row by row, and then I'll show you how it looks at the end with mohair. So you've done 176 chains. Now we're going to turn our work and do a setup row for the cluster stitch. So starting from the second hook on your chain, we're going to insert and make a single crochet stitch, then chain 1, skip over the next chain, and single crochet into the next chain. The spaces that are left will be where we insert our cluster stitches in the next row, and we're going to continue doing this across the row to set it all up. So single crochet, chain 1, skip over a chain, and then continue on, so on and so forth. Single crochet, chain space, single crochet, chain space. Getting to the end, things should line up so that we do a single crochet into the last chain, but instead of yarning over that last time to pull through the last 2 loops, we're going to change colors. So leave the last 2 loops, the last move of your single crochet, on your hook, grab your second color of yarn, and then just put that over your hook and pull it through to change colors. We can turn our work and start on the next row. On this row, we're going to be making our cluster stitches, which are done by double crocheting 3 together in the chain spaces. So start by chaining 3, and then we're going to go into this chain space here where we've left a space between the 2 single crochet stitches. To double crochet 3 together, yarn over, insert into the chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, insert into the chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, under 2 stitches, again, yarn over, insert into the chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. Now this is where the cluster comes in. We're going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on our hook. So we basically made a bunch of double crochet stitches like that were partially finished, and then we connect them all together. Now chain 1, and we're going to skip over our single crochet and do the same thing in the next chain space. So 3 double crochets together, I've yarned over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, under 2 loops, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, under 2, yarn over, insert into the space, pull up a loop, yarn over, under 2, and yarn over, here comes, yarn over, and pull through all of the stitches to create your nice cluster. You can see the 2 clusters that I formed. We're going to continue this pattern across the row, chain 1, skip over the single crochet stitch, and then double crochet 3 together in each chain space. At the end of the row, do a basic double crochet stitch into the last single crochet, but again, instead of pulling through the last 2 loops of your move, we're going to change colors. So you can cut your yarn and then grab the first color that you were using, wrap it over your hook, and pull it through those last 2 stitches to finish the double crochet and change colors for the next row. Chain 1 and turn your work. We're going to follow the single crochet chain space pattern on this row to separate all of our clusters. So do a basic single crochet into the first stitch, that's pulling up a loop, wrap over, pull through both loops on your hook, then chain 1, and we're going to skip over the entire cluster and single crochet into the space between the 2 clusters. So I'm inserting my hook between them, pulling up a loop, and then pulling it through 2 loops there. Continue across the entire row with that pattern, chaining 1, skipping over a cluster, single crocheting between the clusters. This contrasting color in between each of the clusters just really makes each of them stand out, and it also sets us up to do another row of clusters next. When you get to the end of the row, work 1 single crochet into the top of the last chain, but again, instead of yarning over and pulling through the last 2 loops, we're going to change back to our second color, use that to finish off the single crochet, and we can turn to start the next row. Time for another cluster stitch row. So begin by chaining 3, and then we're going to start doing the 3 double crochet and 1 chain space method again. We want all the clusters to line up, so find the chain space that's directly above your first cluster, and that is what we're going to do the 3 double crochet into. You know the drill: pull up some yarn, pull under 2 loops, yarn over, pull up, under 2 loops, yarn over, pull up, under 2 loops, and then under everything that's left on your hook to create the cluster. Then chain 1, skip over the single crochet, and go in to do another double crochet 3 together in the chain space above your next cluster. When you get to the end, do basic double crochet into the top of the last single crochet and switch colors at the last move. So I'm going to cut my color here, bring in my first color again, use that to finish off the single crochet, and we're on to our last row. Chain 1, and we're going to do the same pattern as before with single crocheting in between each cluster. So this is my single crochet, and I'm chaining 1, skipping over the cluster, single crocheting in between them. We're going to do that across the entire row, chaining, and then single crocheting in between each cluster. Single crochet into the top of the last stitch, and this time we don't need to change colors, so you can fully finish the single crochet with this color, and you should have 2 cluster rows that are all just very cutely separated by a contrasting color. I think this looks so nice together, and I'm meeting you back here with my mohair bow so you can see what that is looking like. With your hook still in your last row, we're going to finish this edge off with the same color so that it looks like there is a nice border that goes around the whole bow. So chain 1 and then just do 5 single crochets along this edge here. Make sure that your last stitch is in the first stitch of your first row so that this is a seamless border around the entire thing. Then just pull your yarn up a bit and we can fasten off cutting the yarn, pulling it through the loop, and you've created one seamless edge here. We're going to go do that on the other edge as well. For the other edge, you'll need to use a new piece of yarn, of course still holding double, pull up a loop before you can do the 5 single crochets across the edge, and again make sure that to make it nice and seamless you end by touching your first stitch as well so that it all runs together. Fasten that off, and now it's time for everyone's favorite part of crocheting, which is weaving in ends. So I've got lots of little fluffy ends here from each row. I'm going to be grabbing a tapestry needle and just weaving those into the back side of my bow a few times until I feel like it's all nice and secure. Here is the finished fabric of my bow. I love how this stitch looks, especially with the mohair. Now we're going to tie it all up. So instead of actually tying a knot, we're just going to lay things in the shape of a bow. So I make 2 flaps, cross them in the middle, and now we're going to crochet a piece to hold it all together at the middle there. So grab a new piece of yarn. Again, I have 2 strands held together, and I'm using a color that matches the border on my bow. And we're going to do a basic slip knot before chaining 4, then chain 1 more just so we can turn around, and we're going to make a strip of fabric that is 4 stitches wide, just going back and forth with a basic crochet stitch for 16 to 20 rows. So until my piece is long enough to wrap around the center of my bow, I'm just doing 4 single crochet stitches on each row, then chaining 1, turning around, doing another 4. Cut your piece with a bit of a tail so that we can use that for seaming, and I'm just going to wrap it around directly in the middle of my bow. Then when we flip it over here, I'm just going to take a tapestry needle and do a basic stitch back and forth to hold the 2 ends together. So it's already connected to one side, going to the other side and just slipping under one of my stitches, back over to the other side, back and forth, just a basic seam here to hold it nice and tight together. When we get to the end of the seam, just weave it into the back side a few times to make things nice and secure, and then you can grab your scissors and cut close to finish it off. And there you have a completed bow. How cute is that? If you're interested in checking out some more free patterns for fun girly crochet projects like these, head to materialgirls.com. We've got a bunch of fun things going on in the crochet section. All of these things came out in issues of Material Girls magazine, so you can read the magazines, you can make the patterns for free, and check out all the fun stuff we're doing on there. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for watching, and make sure to tag Material Girls in your finished bows.